Alrighty, yo, what's just going on, everybody? It's your boy, Mr. DDG94 here, back with another reaction video. Today we've had a react there. The satisfying death of Hypebeast culture. Okay, without further ado, let's get right into this.
Dictionary.com defines a hypebeast as
a person who avidly pursues trending fashions and newly released products in streetwear, primarily as signifiers of social prestige and financial means.
basically someone who follows trends and buys expensive stuff to flex or just for the sake of it being expensive. Recently, I made a video called The Death of Sneaker Culture, where I covered how, well, sneaker culture kind of fell apart. And one of my main reasons this happened was because Hypebeast infiltrated the market, jacked up the prices, and kind of ruined it for everyone. Aside from a few references, I didn't really dive into the overarching Hypebeast culture that went hand in hand with sneaker culture, because trust me, it was about more than just sneakers.
Yeah, Supreme really made a f***ing brick. Look at this shit. Apparently it would cost like $7 million to build an average size home with these.
These figures retail for $6,000 US, though have recently fetched around $50,000 to $100,000 US at auction.
They wait in line for 3 or 4 days now.
For what?
You're probably gonna freak out when I show you what they're waiting for.
Please do.
Yeah, shovels, bricks.
Shovels and bricks.
We can only thank Supreme for making this their new shovel.
So how did brands like Supreme have people paying hundreds for a brick? Or how did brands like Cause have people
If you're gonna pay that much for a shovel, brother, you might be. I hope you going into business for yourself. I hope you gonna start a business with that and make your money, make some money with that. Buying bricks and shovels and shit. You gonna start a business? The fuck?
spending thousands on, I guess, toys for adults? I mean, nowadays, it's almost like no one cares about a lot of the traditional hypebeast brands. So how did what was once a derogatory term turn into something people proudly proclaimed?
I don't wake up every morning and say, hey, how can I do something hypebeast today? How can I be a bigger hypebeast than I was yesterday?
Unlike the sneaker video, in this video, I'm more interested in what drove an entire generation of people to spend thousands of dollars on clothes strictly because they were popular. And while this super big hypebeast era may be over, I'd argue that it never died. In fact, I think that it's still around today, just in a different way. And
I mean, let's be for real, bro. People out here buying fakes. Just let that sink in for a minute, bro. People out here buying fakes, bro. And proud of it too, on top of that. Niggas are buying fakes and are proud of it. You really think somebody give a fuck about the only people, if you think somebody care about the fact that you spent $8,000 on a pair of Nikes that they got off a Chinese website for $25, you think they care? Like, oh, I got these, I feel like AK on these, bro. I spent 25 on mine. What do you mean? They're reps, bro. Man, what the fuck, you wearing fake ass shoes? Don't nobody care about.
to understand all of this, we have to understand where the hypebeast came from. Streetwear as a fashion genre typically dates back to the 80s with the creation of Stussy, widely being considered the original streetwear brand. However, a lot has changed from then to now. California's Sean Stussy only ever started his brand because he got into the habit of making shirts for his friends, featuring his iconic graffiti signature.
It's not in every store on the block, you know, so people still really want it.
Like it could right now be in a lot more stores and be like a big thing that was doing like double the amount of sales of the stuff. But then, you know, you guys wouldn't be here wanting to talk about it, and all my homeboys wouldn't want to wear it because everybody else did. So there's really a fine line and a natural like growth pattern to it. Frank and I never were like big shot kind of wannabe greedy guys. We've really like tried to like be true to ourselves and like have it from the soul more and not like say yes to a bunch of money.
But since then, the relatively underground fashion genre has spawned a bunch of subgenres, which include the hypebeast, which is often categorized as a specific, highly brand-driven subgenre of streetwear. The success of streetwear can be attributed to the power of youth movements and counterculture. Back in the early 2000s in online fashion forums, the term hypebeast was actually used as a derogatory term. And for a long time, being a hypebeast was a bad thing, especially since individuality was prized in those days of fashion, and many at the time viewed being a hypebeast as the opposite of that. Like many online terms though, as hypebeast began to gain traction and grow in notoriety, the meaning behind it changed. A large part of this is thanks to the blog site called Hypebeast. Kevin Ma, who started the brand, said, "The term hypebeast had a negative connotation when we first used it because it meant that you were just following hype, and I thought it was funny to use this name. I didn't think about it too much. Nowadays, Hypebeast can mean a lot of different things for different people, but this would continue to evolve. Remember Stussy? Well, they're not only one of the first streetwear brands, but they also played a major role in spawning some of the big brands we know and love today. And I'm not talking just subtle inspiration here. James Jebbia, the founder of Supreme, worked closely with Stussy before launching his own brand. From 1991 to 1994, James partnered with Sean Stussy to help run and establish the first Stussy store in New York City. He applied the tribe mentality and drop model learned at Stussy to build Supreme. When a lot of people think of the Hypebeast era, Supreme is often the first and most iconic brand that comes to mind. What started as a small skate shop in New York became one of the most famous clothing brands in the world. However, at first it wasn't even a fashion label. It was a simple store made for skaters with a big open space in the middle so people could skate inside. The first collection stuck to the basics, including t-shirts, hoodies, and hats. It was nothing fancy, but it was very real to the skate culture of the time. And one of the smartest things Supreme did was keep their drops limited. By only releasing a small number of each item, things sold out quick, which made people want them even more. This concept helped create the sense of hype, leading to excitement and then even competition. Fans started lining up for hours and even days before new drops. Supreme made shopping feel like a game. You had to be quick, lucky, and dedicated, and that made every single product feel special. Basically, when a Hypebeast brand like Supreme announced an upcoming drop, a few different things would happen. At physical locations, people would line up for hours and hours ahead of time in hopes of getting their hands on some Supreme gear from the new release. Sometimes there would be some genuine shoppers who wanted a piece or two for themselves, but other times you'd have resellers going in to grab up as much as they could. The internet side of things works similarly. Sometimes there were online queues with again a mix of personal shoppers and resellers. However, the online resellers had the unique advantage of using bots to beat out their competition and get a chance.
I never got the hype for Supreme. I never got it. I never got the hype for Supreme. Niggas was just wearing that shit. What was the other one? The other one that skateboarders used to rock. What was it called? Started with a T. I forgot. Had the flame. It had the flame font and then started with a T. I don't know. Y'all can figure it out for me. But yeah, I ain't fuck with that shit.
To buy everything first. They also sometimes would pay people to wait in line for them, but bots were definitely a more common practice. Regardless, as time went on, the already exclusive merch became harder and harder to get at a reasonable price, which inevitably became a worse and worse problem as time went on for the community, and I'm sure you guys can see how this eventually became a major issue. But it wasn't just Supreme that was rapidly growing into the scene. Bape was another brand that started popping up everywhere with their iconic ape head logo. From its origins in the streets of Harajuku, Japan, to its global reign in the realm of streetwear, Bape has been a very successful brand. Founded in 1993 by Nigo,
only had one pair of Bape, and that was some jogging pants. That was like some sweatpants from Bape. Some Bape sweatpants. That was it. That's all I ever had from them. And I don't even know if that shit was real. Because we got it from one of them hood shops. Them hood shops that used to sell designer. Or claim they sold designer. I don't even know if that shit was real.
Bape crafted a unique fusion of hip-hop and fashion that captivated Shibuya's youth long before it gained mainstream recognition. And as Hypebeast culture continued to go mainstream, so did Bape. A cult following rapidly grew into a worldwide phenomenon devoured by Hypebeast consumers across the globe, which was ironic because the acronym Bape, which stands for a bathing ape, offered a satirical twist on the famous Japanese idiom, a bathing ape in lukewarm water, mocking the privileged youth and their excessive consumption of high fashion. But regardless of its original meaning, Nigo went from making just 50 shirts a week, with only half of them selling, to becoming one of the biggest Hypebeast brands, all in a remarkably short span of time, and also following the exclusivity model. A model which many other hype brands capitalized on, including Palace, Fear of God, and notably a bunch of Virgil Abloh's stuff like Off-White. From streetwear to luxury fashion, Virgil pretty much reshaped the industry as a whole. He first developed a following while working as a creative assistant for Kanye, then later founded the high-end clothing.
RP to Virgil. RP to Virgil. Shout RP to a black brother that actually was moving, that was actually doing things in the fashion world on his own. Shout out to him. RP to that brother.
brands Off-White and Pyrex Vision. He perfected what many streetwear and later on Hypebeast brands strive for. Virgil had mastered the art of hype. A ton of the clothes he designed weren't always entirely different or outside of the box, especially to the untrained eye, yet he created a brand worth hundreds of millions in Off-White and was specifically chosen as the artistic director of Louis Vuitton's menswear line. His use of simplicity was genius and contributed heavily to what made parts of Hypebeast fashion great, helping grow the genre to arguably one of the biggest in the world. Fast forward to the mid to late 2010s and the term Hypebeast wasn't negative anymore. If anything, some people viewed it more as a compliment. Companies like Supreme, Off-White, Bape, and others had a massive amount of popularity. Being labeled a Hypebeast now meant that you were in possession of some of the most popular streetwear pieces. The transition is a reflection of the times, where owning as many hype pieces as you could gave you perceived cultural currency, which for some in the scene was all that mattered. And due to the size of the resale market at the time, owning a rare piece wasn't just a collectible, it was an investment. People weren't dressing in outfits they thought matched well or looked cool. They were putting things on that would add up to the highest total price tag.
Which is why kids today don't know how to fucking dress. Y'all don't know how to fucking dress. Y'all wearing... I really want kids to understand something. You're wearing pink with camouflage pants. Make it make sense, bro. Make it make sense. You're wearing pink. You're wearing a pink t-shirt with camouflage joggers or shorts, whatever. That shit is tacky as fuck. My nigga, you're wearing pink. Sometimes y'all wear cheetah with fucking... Y'all wear cheetah print shirts with fucking pink pants and light green pants and shit. Like, nigga, y'all niggas don't know how to dress for shit. But it costs more than everything you got on, though. That's not the point. As cheap as my outfit is, at least it don't look tacky. Niggas get that money and then just don't know how to act, bro. Niggas get a little outfit and don't know how to act, bro. That's crazy.
Canada Goose, Gore-Tex jacket, 1000.
Look at this shit. Tacky. Tacky. Look at this. You have a red shirt on. You have a red hoodie with a green and black coat on with fur on the hood. Nigga, tacky. Do you niggas know how to dress? Where your mama at? Where is your mama at, boy? This shit is trash.
Try. Supreme Louis Vuitton, too much, like 10,000. Audio t-shirt, 100. Calabasas pants, 150. Off-White Jordans, got scammed, still 1,500. So that's my favorite. And hold up. Louis Vuitton wallet, 800.
Wait, why are you doing this accent? I just realized you were speaking like this.
And this is where things started to get a little crazy. For the longest time, streetwear wasn't the mainstream style. That was until the Hypebeast came around, which are exactly what they sound like. People interested in certain brands just because there's a lot of hype surrounding them, only buying things following trends to appear cool or fashionable. And don't get me wrong, there was definitely some cool fashion that came from that era, but in general, there was definitely some major problems, especially considering that streetwear was originally made for the people and was now instead being made for the rich and the reseller. A massive part of the emergence and mainstreamification of the Hypebeast style can be attributed to social media and the internet. Supreme began to get really popular. Then later on during the Hypebeast era's peak, you had every single SoundCloud rapper repping the brands, and then you also had the clout rappers too, you know, people like Lil Pump flexing everything. He had a Supreme bike, I think, or like a tricycle. On top of this, there's a bunch of influencers and creators that made being a Hypebeast a major part of their...
See, this one I'm finna start wearing Sean John and FUBU and shit again. I'm telling you, bro. Y'all think I'm lying. I'm finna start rocking some fly-ass... Y'all gonna see me one day. I'm gonna just put that shit on. I'm gonna start taking pictures for the gram, bro. Y'all gonna see my FUBU fit. Y'all gonna see this FUBU platinum. I'm telling y'all, bro. Y'all finna see me in some of the flyest FUBU. Y'all gonna be like, you ain't got these, though. You ain't got the FUBU platinum with the motherfucking Fat Albert on the back, you know what I'm saying? You ain't got the Fat Albert FUBU like me, you know what I'm saying? You got that Harlem Globetrotter FUBU like me now. I'm finna start rocking some of that fly ass shit. I'm finna have y'all niggas a goofy out here. Y'all wanna spend 10,000 on shit. shit, I'm finna be flogging a motherfucker on niggas, boy. Then then you know what else I'm gonna do? I'm gonna start rapping all the other brands that y'all didn't fuck with. I'm gonna start rocking Zoo York. Remember Zoo York? I'm gonna start rocking they shit too. Y'all gonna see me with that Zoo York? I'll talk about some, yeah, you ain't got these. It's that new shit.
Their own personal brand. For example, think about Rice Gum and like everyone else in FaZe who at the time would be seen in something Supreme, Bape, or Off-White, or just Hypebeast merch in general.
Nike collab, I think these are pretty expensive. We are here in my closet and I have some explaining to do. As you guys all know, I live in like a $15 million house. All my clothes keeps getting $800. I'll just start from top to bottom. Yeezy Red Octobers, Fragment 1, White Nike. That are actually dirty because I actually wear them. Yeezys, more Yeezys, more Yeezys, more Yeezys. Off-White Air Maxes, and more Yeezy.
Even FaZe had his car wrapped in an Off-White branding. And there was even more direct people like Supreme Patty, who honestly might not have been the best representative for the brand, but regardless, he made it a part of his name and even tattooed it on his stomach.
So I looked up on like the internet, like Instagram name generator. So it would like make you plug in like 7-8 words, blah blah, and then it had a list of them, and like that came up.
Anyway, at this time, there was tons of other YouTubers like Blazendary or Kaisomar doing things like fit checks or talking about how expensive everyone's outfits were. And people like Kaisomar, for example, were proud to be a Hypebeast. It was something they proudly admitted and represented.
I don't wake up every morning and say, hey, how can I do something Hypebeast today? How can I be a bigger Hypebeast than I was yesterday? It's just the perfect word to sum up how I like to buy things, like the type of stuff I like to buy things. Like, this is the perfect word. It just works. But I feel like it's time to move on. I feel like the Hypebeast era is, it sounds weird, but it's not cool anymore.
Also, I forgot to mention him in the sneaker video, but Brad Hall was the best sneaker / hype YouTuber there was. And I don't know what he's up to nowadays, but I hope he's doing well.
I think the shirt I'm wearing is perfect for it, so I'm gonna go with that. So that's my perfect outfit. I hope to see a lot of other people wearing exactly this. I will, because it's a really good look.
But Hypebeast fashion wasn't limited to just musicians or influencers. Pretty much everyone that could get their hands on it was wearing it. And all this big name representation led to a ton of momentum in the culture. Supreme started collaborating with other big brands like Nike, North Face, Louis Vuitton, and even Oreo for some reason. These connections and others like them helped expand Supreme and the entire Hypebeast genre into the mainstream. Instead of being a niche subculture in the skating community, Hypebeast brands were seemingly everywhere. And this is when Hypebeast fashion as a genre really took its form as a distinct style.
This is when I think streetwear got Pinterestified and diversified. What I mean by this is that before the mid-2010s, the idea of styling at the height of Hypebeast fashion was pretty non-existent. You might disagree with me and think that your outfit from 2016, where you combined a Supreme BOGO t-shirt, some ripped jeans and Yeezys, was a very well thought out stylistic expression of your individuality.
Bro, you could do this with a basic white tee, some basic ripped jeans, and any other pair of shoes.
Or whatever, but at least the way I remembered that era is that the most revered outfits were either ones made up of matching clothes from the same drop, you know, Gully Guy Leo core, or just
dress like this. If you gonna go out like this, man, dress like this, man. Wear the whole set piece, bruh. This is cool. I'm fine with this. When you got the matching top and the matching bottom, that's perfectly fine. You out here styling, my brother. You out here styling, my brother. I don't mind them. Matching top, matching bottom, always a good fit. But it's when y'all just start putting shit together because it's the most expensive thing in your closet. Fuck out of here.
Piling on as much expensive loud clothes as possible. The modern Hypebeast. By definition, Hypebeast as a term doesn't directly refer to this particular style or era of fashion, and in fact, it basically means someone who buys into a lot of trends and usually uses this to flaunt their wealth or status.
I'm sure you can see why that's a little problematic for the fashion community. The Oreo collab was a sign of how ridiculous things were getting. Like I said in the intro, people were buying bricks, toys, even shovels, and I bet they didn't even use them for yard work. And you also had everyone buying those clout goggles. Like, this fashion trend got pretty ridiculous.
Some stuff from Kip Streets, like,
I ain't gonna lie, when they started putting out them clout glasses, boy, that was probably the most irritating. That was probably the most irritating time to be out and about, bro. Because everybody had them shits. It was like, bro, them shits was super annoying to see.
the milk bottle, the cereal, the napkins, all that cool stuff. And then down here is my Coca-Cola Bape Frisbee.
Over here is my little Bape Play mini figurine with a Palace hat. Some more Palace accessories. I actually don't really mess with Palace like maybe a lot of people think I would.
Accessories were one of the main ways people like me who didn't have any money could participate. Like maybe I couldn't afford a $1,000 Supreme shirt, but I could maybe squeeze out $100 for a Supreme headband. And people were buying these overpriced things like a bag of cereal from Kith just to have an item with a popular brand's name on it. To a degree, I think I understand why people were acting this way. I was like 15 at the time and I wanted these cool hype items like anyone else did. I was pretty easily influenced by what everyone around me was doing. And for a couple of years, I really wanted to look like my favorite artists or influencers or whoever else. Honestly, I think I still have a Bape headband somewhere too. Regardless, what I'm getting at here is I think this trend was in general driven by a lot of young people just looking to fit in. Young people who didn't know they could go to a thrift store and find a really cool fit for under $50. People that didn't understand that brands don't matter unless you personally really like that brand. Until they inevitably grew up and learned these things. I remember the first time I went thrift shopping and I realized, what am I doing looking at these, $1,000 Hanes shirts? It's ridiculous. In 2018, a Redditor named Sphinx posed the question, is being a hypebeast actually so bad? Another named Scourge responded saying, if you're waiting in line and pay outrageous prices for things that brands tell you that you need to have in order to stay relevant while actually having no personal style of your own, then yes, I'd say it's a bad thing. In response, Sphinx said, yeah, that's my point. It's a derogatory term. So if the nature of streetwear is to not give a fuck and wear whatever you want, then what's wrong with being a hypebeast? And then Scourge made a great point saying, the nature of streetwear isn't to not give a fuck about what you wear, it's about counterculture and being creative about what you wear, rather than adhering to a MFA uniform, which all flies in the face of worshiping a brand just so you can show off hype clothes. This back and forth really explains the mindset that a lot of hypebeasts had and the mindset that a lot of anti-hypebeasts had. For example, remember the original meaning of Bape that I mentioned earlier, which mocks the privileged youth and their excessive consumption of high fashion? While this may not apply 100% to every streetwear / hypebeast brand, in general, I think it encompasses the counterculture vibes that a ton of these brands were built on. And it's hard to be counterculture when you've now become the mainstream culture. But it's not like becoming popular in itself ruined the booming fashion subgenre. If anything, that statement at surface level couldn't be further from the truth. However, it's the newer members of the community that really ended up being the ones that heard it. A lot of young people in particular got into hypebeast fashion, not for the fashion part, but for the hypebeast part. They didn't care about what styles actually looked good, they just cared about how much their fit cost. It is undisputed that the younger generation is generally more prone to impulsive decisions and swings of emotions than the older population. Hypebeast brands like Supreme exploits this specific characteristic of the audience to ramp up their sales. This caused a lot of issues like terrible fits, scarcity beyond its original intention, and of course, giant prices on the aftermarket. Hypebeast culture and consumerism pretty much started to kill streetwear. A ton of iconic streetwear brands were originally independent clothing labels founded by and for underground subcommunities and subcultures. And the Hypebeast era flipped this on its head. Now these clothes were for the rich that could afford it, or the resellers that had bots and could snag them up before anyone else. But thankfully, this wouldn't last forever. Resellers, scalpers, and hypebeasts really seem to be the ones that cannibalized themselves and killed this era. Reselling has a lot to do with the negative connotation many associate with streetwear. It's arguably streetwear's most toxic trait. A shirt that probably costs less than $10 to make can retail for $80 and then resell for over $250 just because it has the words "a bathing ape" on it. While exclusivity in fashion is already sort of controversial, streetwear culture takes that to a whole new level, feeding off of the exclusive nature of limited drops. For those addicted to hypebeast fashion, missing out on a drop, as one article said, is like losing a family member. Hypebeast fashion leverages supply and demand to the max, and if there's too much supply, the demand just won't meet it. If every hypebeast could have as many Supreme box logos as they wanted, it wouldn't be special anymore. The resale culture was extremely responsible for creating the hype of these items, and it really aided in the mindless consumerism, which was people just buying stuff because it had a high price tag, which then in turn reinforced the reasoning for them having a high price tag, if you know what I mean. It's like Ouroboros, which really sucks for someone with a genuine interest in a product or even just the brand's message, since they'll be unable to get what they want at a fair price, all because someone who's only looking to turn a profit has already beaten them to buying it. As a result, pieces cost an insane amount of money that so many people who want to be a part of the culture just don't have. And for many of those who can't afford it or don't care about the purpose of streetwear, instead of valuing a clothing item by how it looks or how they can style it, it's valued solely by how rare it is or especially how much it costs. In sneakers, this was always a thing, looking for that rare version no one else had. But at least in the beginning, it wasn't about spending more money, it was about knowing your shit, about having connections, about and digging through old sporting goods stores. Another piece of the puzzle is the fact that Supreme in particular was purchased by VF Corp in 2020. A lot of people attribute part of the death of the hypebeast culture to this acquisition. They opened a lot more stores after this acquisition and even allegedly changed production from their traditional higher quality Canadian manufacturers to sourcing a bit more from some lower quality producers in China, but I'm not entirely sure how accurate that part is. Regardless, there was a decline in Supreme's revenue in 2023, and it's even being reported that VF Corp wants to sell, so they might not have managed Supreme the best. And while many have argued that the Hypebeast era is dead, like I sort of suggested earlier, I don't think that's entirely the case. The Hypebeast era, trend, and fashion style of the mid to late 2010s is dead for sure, but the general sentiment of being a hypebeast, in my opinion, is far from gone. In fact, it's always been here, and I think it always will be. Many fans of fashion seem to have grown out of certain brands like Supreme, Bape, and Off-White. Although don't get me wrong, it may not be their mainstay anymore, but a ton of yesterday's hypebeasts will still get stirred up over a new or interesting Supreme collab, like that Spider-Man one I just saw floating around.
By the start of the 2020s, I think people got a bit sick of just having all the gear and no idea, and wanted their outfits to say a little more than just I have something you don't, or I have more money than you. This is around the time I think Hypebeast started to diversify into different areas of fashion. Some people switched out the Bape hoodies for Stussy 8-ball fleeces and started to favor Birkenstock Bostons over Yeezys, and essentially began TikTok micro trend hopping. But now at least there was some attempt to style an outfit, even if it was just the sandwich method or exclusively wearing earth tones.
However, nowadays it seems popular streetwear fashion has shifted away from super flamboyant colors to more minimalistic and neutral tones. And a big thanks for that goes to Kanye, amongst others like Cardi, who have popularized the Rick Owens and Chrome Hearts almost modern gothic type style. These are kind of what you could call today's hypebeast brands. Obviously though, it's a significantly different industry around it. Chris Black, a brand consultant and co-host of the podcast How Long Gone, says, "I think that streetwear being a relatively affordable way to participate in consumerism as a young person is kind of what will keep it alive." He added on explaining that the community, well, different from the hypebeast era, continues to rally shoppers. That sense of belonging guarantees that brands like Supreme and other newcomers like Fear of God Essentials will continue to succeed regardless of the era that we're in. I mean, even Labubus could be considered a hypebeast item since everyone was buying them pretty much just because they were popular. The hypebeast in its truest sense will never die, as there will always be people who want to dress like, look like, and flex like everyone else on the internet. A lot of people force it instead of just being themselves, and that's just the way life goes. If you're curious what happened to the sneaker industry in specific, and a few of the attributes that aided in killing hypebeast culture a little more in depth than I went in this video, make sure to click the video that's on screen.
Alrighty, that's just gonna about do it for this one, most definitely, man. Like I said, I've never got into the hypebeast era. I never found anything that they championed to be worthy of my dollar. Not because I couldn't afford it. Well, that has somewhat to do with it, but for the most part, not because I couldn't afford it, but because it's like, nigga, I refuse to pay $150 for a fucking t-shirt. $150 for a t-shirt is egregious. One t-shirt, $150. I could go to the gas station and get a pack of t-shirts for like $10. I'm good, Chief. I'm good. But anyways, though, that's just gonna about do it for this one. Most definitely, man. Hypebeast gonna do what they do. I'm gonna do my own Hypebeast thing. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, I'm bringing Fubu and Zoo York back. I'll tell y'all, bro. Y'all go see me on here one day with that Fubu Platinum. Y'all gonna be like, man, why you got that Fubu Platinum on? Don't worry about it, Chief. You ain't on this. Don't be asking me questions. You wasn't over here when I told you. I'm gonna be on that. I'll say I'm gonna be the Hypebeast killer over here. They gonna be looking at me like, this nigga got on Fubu. He kind of rocking that shit. Let me get on that train. I'll be the Hypebeast killer over here. But anyway, so that's just gonna about do it for this one. I'll see y'all in the next video. Until then, peace.